Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Tuesday. Today is Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Thank you for joining me. We have an awesome show planned for you today. We're going to actually start by talking some hockey, believe it or not. Steve Kim's going to join me as a part of this hockey discussion, and we'll get into some other sports topics. On the back end of the show, I'll be joined by Delano and Shamika Michelle, and I'm going to take, in the second half of the show, an opportunity to remind you all or share with you all or reaffirm with you all what the mission and vision of Fearless is. And because I think obviously a conversation has been created around me and this show, and it's a reminder to me that I need to remind people actually of what it is we're doing here. And so that no one gets distracted or gets confused and perhaps thinks, no, they're actually doing this, when no, we're actually doing exactly what we said we were going to do. And so second half of the show is going to be about the show, and I'm going to engage with Delano and Shamika Michelle on that. But the first half of the show, we're going to talk some sports with Steve Kim. Before I bring on Steve Kim, I want to talk to you guys about part of our purpose here and part of our inspiration, and that is preborn. You guys know how I feel about preborn. You guys know how I feel and we feel about life beginning at conception. And no organization supports that belief more than Preborn. Preborn is an organization that helps women that are considering abortion, helps expectant mothers make the right decision, the biblical decision, the decision that will leave them with no regrets later in life. Preborn provides expectant mothers ultrasounds that introduce them to the baby's heartbeat and an image of that baby in the womb. That woman is now twice as likely to choose life rather than go through the abortion process. Preborn does this. The ultrasounds cost $28 per ultrasound. And so whether you give $28 or maybe you pay for 5 ultrasounds, $140, or whether you give $28,000, it all goes to a great cause, because Preborn not only introduces that woman to the ultrasound, they then, when the woman chooses life, then step in and support that woman throughout the rest of her pregnancy and the first 2 years of that baby's life. There's nothing we could do more to support our belief that life begins at conception than supporting a great organization like Preborn. There's 2 ways to give. You can dial #250 and say the keyword baby, or you can go to preborn.com/fearless. That's preborn.com/fearless. Be a good fearless soldier. Support Preborn. And when you do, send me an email about it at fearlessblazeshow@gmail.com. It warms my heart, keeps me inspired, makes me get my fat butt up on my Stairmaster and all that. And it makes me think about good content we can do on this show. So without further ado, let's bring Steve Kim on, because Steve, this is a topic that I just recently discovered right before we did the show, maybe an hour before we started doing this show. Someone came in, actually it was Tiffany, the makeup girl. Did you hear about the hockey player? And I was like, no, well, maybe I did a little bit. And then I went and looked into it. There's a hockey player over in the UK by the name of Adam Johnson, who basically died on the ice, or was harmed on the ice and then died at the hospital. He took a skate, a blade, to the throat during a hockey match in the UK. I think they call it the Elite Ice Hockey League. Adam Johnson is a former NHL player, had a cup of coffee in the NHL. He's 29 years old. A player on the opposing team named Matt Petgrave somehow raised his leg up high enough to kick Adam Johnson in the neck, slicing his neck, Later, Adam Johnson dies. We're playing the video now. I don't know, we won't spend a lot of time showing the video because it's hard to look at, but I do want to give you all a chance to see the guys. Anyway, this to me, Steve, does not look like the normal ice hockey collision. I called a friend of mine who played hockey at a high level, relatively high level, and who follows hockey very, very closely. It's a passion of his. I've reached out to a couple other people that have followed hockey very closely, and they say nothing about this kick looks natural. And so there are arguments being made, and there's consideration in the UK that Matt Petgrave may be criminally charged, perhaps with manslaughter. People are calling for that. Steve, I know you've watched the video. Perhaps you've watched more hockey than I have. I've watched some hockey. I just haven't seen anybody lift their leg, throw it around from behind, unless they were falling, which Matt Petgrave wasn't. This, to me, looks like an intentional kick. And I can't disagree that perhaps the police should investigate and look into this. What did you see?
Well, I saw the same thing you did. And, let's give a little context. There was a time I actually did watch a lot of hockey. Growing up as a kid in Valencia, California, the Los Angeles Kings, I was one of the few people that watched the days of Marcel Dion, Charlie Simmer, and guys of that ilk, Dave Taylor, the Triple Crown line. So there was a time I actually was interested in hockey, and I've watched the fair share all the way up to Wayne Gretzky's run as a Los Angeles King, and then my interest has kind of waned the last 25, 30 years. Jason, I've never seen anything like that, and when I watch that footage, it makes me wince. And I will defer to people that know much more about this sport than I do. On the Twitter timeline, things have popped up. People that cover hockey, have played hockey, and coached hockey, they're all very outraged. And look, situations like this have happened. I remember a goaltender years ago, I think for the Toronto Maple Leafs, was slashed in the throat, but that was very accidental. It was nothing like this where someone raised his leg. And there are certain unwritten rules in hockey about how you deal with people in terms of why you need an enforcer, the way you fight. You're not allowed to use your head if you have your helmet on. Look, there's a way to give out justice, if you will. Because every team in hockey, I don't know if it still exists, but I remember growing up, guys like Dave Schultz, a little bit before me, Marty McSorley, they were there to be the bodyguards for the really good players and to make sure that everyone kind of behaved. And I do remember some controversies where guys would use their heads with the helmet on. There's a situation involving Donald Brashear years ago. But something like this, where you're lifting up your leg and it looked like a targeted attack on the neck, and you know what a blade can do, Jason, I'll just call it for what it is. That looked premeditated.
Steve, that is certainly the way it looked. That's not Steve and I saying that it was, but that is certainly the way it looked. This conversation over social media, what I picked up and saw instantly is that it's even more complicated than right and wrong because of where we're at in this space where everything's judged along a racial line, and it just so happens that Adam Johnson is white and Matt Petgrave is black. And so now there's this whole racial discussion going on over social media. And that's why I find this conversation interesting and important, is because I keep trying to explain how social media has been rigged to promote division and to promote animus and to complicate all conversations. Instead of people just having a conversation of, hey, was this right or wrong? Does this look unfair or not? The racial dynamic has been injected into this, and people are suggesting that people are overreacting because Matt Petgrave is black. It's just sad because I'm just telling you right now, we need one standard of judgment that can't constantly be tossed into the racial blender. And again, it's obviously a pet issue of mine in this show of everything being examined through these racial lenses and people choosing sides based on race rather than right and wrong. This is going to be one of those topics because I'll be interested how the UK handles this because they have the same racial politics going on over there that we have here. And so I wonder how police and investigators and law enforcement is going to handle this case because of the racial implications.
Yeah, look, that hovers over everybody right now. And it is interesting that what I've seen in sports coverage in situations like this, the mainstream media, they will treat this with kid gloves because a lot of these individuals are hanging on by a thread. They don't have a lot of options. And quite frankly, some of them lack guts. They're cowards. They don't want to say it because they don't want the online Twitter blowback. If you state the obvious, certain people that have certain visions or I would say pseudo realities of the way the world works, they will then say, well, you're a racist for pointing it out. And again, a lot of these guys, they don't have the guts or the courage just to say, well, wait a minute, someone got murdered here or someone got killed. They lost their lives in an unusual manner. And I'll go back to my old phrase. It's the double standard, no standard. There's a double standard for certain people and a no standards for others. And it seems to be applied here. If the roles were reversed, let's be honest, a guy like Ryan Clark would have no issue suddenly becoming a hockey analyst and then judging the intent of somebody, much like he did with Brady Quinn recently.
Steve, you're 1,000% accurate. And again, neither Steve nor I, but me in particular, I'm not acting like I'm any sort of hockey expert. First thing I did when I saw the video was call the person that I knew that played hockey growing up, could have played in college if he had chosen to, but instead chose to play college football, followed hockey his entire life, still follows it now. And his take was, man, I've just never seen anything like that. Then I talked to others that, our producers and other people that follow hockey and have fought. And again, everyone's telling me they've never seen this. They watch hockey. They just haven't seen a leg go up that high, and it's kind of like a roundhouse back kick or whatever. It would happen if you were falling down, but he was not falling down. He seemed to want to kick the guy in the face or chest area with his skate and I'm sure he wasn't anticipating killing the guy, but he sure seemed to want to do some damage. And now he's done too much damage, obviously, and put himself in jeopardy. And he's now going to have to live with that decision. But here was the scenario I thought about, Steve, where we are here in America right now. What would happen if, and I hate to talk about these, but I just have to because we're having a real conversation. This is how friends talk. What would happen in a football game, NFL football game, if a white safety led with his helmet and hit a black player in the chin area, just the typical, the kind of hits Gary Fensick and Ronnie Lott used to do all the time. But if that happened today and a player was either paralyzed or killed because of it, what would the reaction be? In football, we're so safety concerned. Now, we would be hyperbolic and demanding that Jack Tatum go to jail now. And now we look at this hockey situation and it's like, hey, let's tamp down the outrage. We don't know what the guy's intent was. It's
Well, Jason,
this is a complicated story.
Let's go back about a month and a half. Travis Hunter's running up the sideline. Henry Blackburn takes what I would describe as a kind of a cheap shot, much the type of hit that was that you described. And, I wouldn't have minded the Colorado Buffaloes inflicting some field street justice on that guy within the field of play in the context of the game. It happens. You know what that young man got from Colorado State? Actual death threats. He got doxxed, got phone calls, people wanting to do bodily harm. And to the credit of Travis Hunter, he calmed down the situation by saying, wait a minute, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. And so did Dion. They said, you know what? It's just a game. It was a penalty. Let's not do anything crazy. So I think there is your answer right there. The young man literally got death threats.
Over wasn't it a lacerated liver or something, or lacerated kidney? Yeah, not a life-threatening injury, or the guy recovered, he's back playing football. But you're absolutely right. The outrage was at that level that he got death threats, and people over Twitter were all outraged. And anyway, I wanted to talk about that because I think it's an important story that's probably going to have some legs even over here in the United States. Again, this Adam Johnson had a cup of coffee in the NHL. It's a fascinating story, and I see American hockey fans and sports fans are interested in it. Glad we touched on it. I want to stay in a similar theme as it relates to social media's impact and what we're seeing with broadcasters who are so dominated and controlled by a racial narrative that they now have to, it's like they keep a little private scoreboard. Well, I said something that irritated white people. Now let me come back and say something that shows that I'm not racist, rather than just people saying what they actually think and having a consistent worldview. I don't know if you caught this as a Lakers fan, but Ryan Clark somehow figured out a way to compare Kirk Cousins' Achilles injuries to Kobe Bryant, and it just blew my mind. Let's play the clip.
The last person I saw tear his Achilles and take it like a G, the way Kirk Cousins was Kobe Bryant. Yeah. Kobe Bryant walked to the free throw line and shot free throws, and then he walked off. Kirk Cousins took 2 steps after tearing it, hopped to the sideline, cheered for his team when he was on the court. You don't replace that.
He went on to say a bunch of other stuff over Twitter, just like hyping up Kirk Cousins. And I'm just like, come on, man. I get they both had Achilles injuries, but any analogy to Kirk Cousins and Kobe Bryant just is silly, stupid, it's forced, and it's you keeping your racial scoreboard at a level you're comfortable with rather than saying what you really think.
Okay, so as a lifelong Laker fan, in recess, waiting for LeBron James to leave our fine franchise, the comparison to Kirk Cousins, now, I've always thought Kirk was pretty solid. I've never been anti-Kirk Cousins. I think he's a very admirable individual, type of guy you'd love to have as your next-door neighbor, a guy that if he dated your sister, we'd be like, you know what, that one's, he's pretty good. And he's a solid NFL quarterback. You're always going to get 4,000 yards passing, over 30 touchdowns produced, and he's going to win you some games. I like Kirk, and he was playing some of the best ball of his career without Jefferson. This is a shame. I feel bad for the Vikings. I feel bad for him. But if I was to compare him to a Laker, it would not be Kobe, because Kobe is a superstar, one of the all-time greats. How about Byron Scott? B. Scott, very solid, very good. Had some years where he almost made the All-Star game in a loaded Western Conference. It was always good for about 18 to 20 points. Really good bookend to Magic Johnson. Played tough defense, a solid pro, had a long career. So I would say that Kirk Cousins, if he was an NBA player and specifically a Lakers shooting guard, I would have to go with Byron Scott.
I can't put Kirk Cousins on the same level as Byron Scott. I just can't. Byron Scott won championships. I can't do it. I mean, Byron Scott won championships. The knock on Kirk Cousins is that he can't win in the postseason. I mean, and I like Kirk Cousins. He's a believer. He represents all the right values. Let me. I want to read what Ryan Clark had to say. Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles yesterday and took it like a G. Cousins attempted to scramble after the injury, hopped to the sideline, and cheered his team from the cart. It was a Kobe Bryant-like moment, reminiscent of the legend hitting 2 free throws after suffering the same injury. That was legendary. Unfortunately, much like the Lakers, the Vikings will have a tough time replacing their leader. What Kirk has become for this team goes above X's and O's. He was playing at a superstar level, even without Justin Jefferson, showing uncommon toughness and leading a locker room of men back from an 0-3 start. All respect to Cousins. He'd become everything for the Vikings.
Okay. So Jason.
That's not authentic. Yeah.
That is reverse affirmative action praise. I get it. I see what you're doing. Whitlock sniffed it out. I'm going to go back to Kirk Cousins and the slander of him. Okay, Byron Scott was not the number one guy. He was not the quarterback. They had this guy named Irvin Magic Johnson. He was kind of good. You may have heard of him. They had a guy named Kareem and James Worthy. And then they had Michael Thompson, Michael Cooper. Come on. When has Kirk Cousins
Let me tell you who
much help? Come on. Ridiculous.
Let me give you the Kirk Cousins analogy.
Okay.
If Ryan Clark wants to compare Kirk Cousins to somebody.
That right now, jeez.
Kiki Vandeweghe. Great scorer, great player. Love to have him on your team. Never peed a drop in the postseason. Never really mattered. He's Kiki Vandeweghe, man.
Had to go with the white guy, huh? With the white guy. Oh, man.
I'm just keeping it real.
Now that I think about it, I remember a single playoff moment from Kiki because the Nuggets were always getting blown out by the Lakers, and then when he was with the Knicks, you may have nailed that one. You like that? You like that? Okay.
I almost did another one, but I can't remember if I almost called. No, okay. You want a black guy to compare him to?
Yeah. Who?
Mark Aguirre.
Mark won a championship.
Was on some very good Detroit. All right, I thought they won the championship with Adrian Dantley. I was either going to say Adrian Dantley or Mark Aguirre.
What happened was they traded Aguirre for Dantley, and to this day, Dantley blames Isaiah Thomas for not having a ring on his finger. Because remember, Aguirre and Thomas were both Chicago guys. There was a lot of politics behind that. And Aguirre actually has 2 rings with those back-to-back bad boy squads.
He does? That one right,
if it's about the rings, that doesn't really fit.
Yeah, then I screwed that up. I should have said Adrian Dantley, and I loved Adrian Dantley. You sure he won 2 championships with the? Yeah, you're right.
I used to be a big NBA fan. Trust me. Trust me.
I just had it screwed up in my mind. Yeah, Aguirre's got the 2 championships. But I apologize. Isaiah might be watching and will call me out for that because he and Aguirre certainly are good friends or were good friends. I screwed that one up. But anyway, what do you think about Adrian Dantley analogy then? It takes the racial element out of it.
You know, the thing about Adrian Dantley, they used to call him the black hole. Once that ball went in, it never came out. But Adrian was one of the toughest matchups because he was a low post player, Jason, who was about 6'5", and I thought he was an incredibly difficult matchup. But he had problems getting along with teammates and coaches. So that's not Kirk Cousins, though. Kirk Cousins seems to be a great locker room guy, and coaches generally say, yeah, that's a good guy. So I don't even know if that's really a great comparison either.
Steve, give me a second. I want to take care of a little business, take care of one of our great sponsors. I'm a member of this group, AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens. AMAC is awesome. Let me tell you who's not awesome. There's an organization out there that still backs Obamacare, is still gun control and extreme transgender policies that endanger our children. And while they claim to be bipartisan, the truth is that last year, 95% of the donations went to Democrats. That organization is AARP, and it doesn't represent the values of American seniors. Fortunately, there's a conservative alternative. AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, proudly champions Americans' rights to free speech, religious liberty, and the Second Amendment. AMAC is the leading conservative advocacy and benefits organization and defends parents' rights to protect their children. Joining gives you access to special low rates on cell phones and plans, health and wellness products, travel and lodging, vision, dental, and prescription drugs. So join today. Let's send AARP a strong message that they don't represent conservative seniors. Join AMAC today at amac.us/fearless. That's amac.us/fearless. I'm a lifetime member. Join me. Steve, I want to go back to you with this is somewhat of a funny topic. My initial reaction when I saw this, Milwaukee Bucks early in the NBA season, Flavor Flav is singing the national anthem. Have you seen this video? Let's play the video of Flavor Flav singing the national anthem before an NBA game. I can't tell, should I be offended or should I be entertained? Play the video.
Oh, oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light, at the twilight's last gleaming, who for stripes and bright stars.
All right, I've heard enough. I've heard enough. I've heard enough. Stop. Is this funny or is this blasphemy? Are they mocking the national anthem? Or is this just Roseanne Barr? Or what is her name? Roseanne Barr or Roseanne Arnold? I can't remember. Anyway, is this just Roseanne Barr?
All right. As someone who was a great fan and still an admirer of Public Enemy, I was very interested to see this. Now, does this kind of play like an episode of Boondocks? In a way, it does. But you know what? I'm going to say this. In terms of judging that particular effort, so let's say way up here, you have Whitney Houston at the Super Bowl, Marvin Gaye at the '83 All-Star Game at the Forum, and way down here, you have Roseanne and Carl Lewis. I think it's kind of up here. It wasn't that bad. And again, I'm not expecting him to be, Billy Ocean. Now he needed to kind of memorize the lines a little bit, and he was this close to saying 911 is a joke, going, and I'd be like, oh boy, yeah, you dropped 911 a long time ago. Look how late they reacted. But I mean, again, there were certain times I was like, okay, and then it kind of veered off. But you know what? He said in a tweet that this was a dream of mine. I don't care what other people think. I'm doing this for me, and for that, I admire him. For that, all I have to say is Cole Medina. Pretty good. Wasn't bad. Was not as bad as I thought. Let's just put it that way.
I would have expected him to bring out Chuck D and Elvis was a hero the most, but he never meant to me.
Yeah.
I mean, how you gonna be part of it takes a nation of million to hold us back to singing the national anthem. And so I get why Flavor Flav's doing it. Any attention is good attention. He's a celebrity, lifelong dream. The Bucks' decision to book Flavor Flav to sing the national anthem, that was my question.
Yeah, it's really too bad Biz Marquee, God rest his soul, is not alive. Could you imagine him singing the national anthem? I mean, girl, you got what I need. Could you? That Francis Scott would be rolling over in his grave, but I'd want to see it though. I'm not gonna lie to you, I would want to see that though.
Maybe Luther Campbell and the Miso Horny guys will get a shot with the Miami Heat. Maybe Two Live Crew.
From banning the USA to doing the national anthem. I only requested, could you wear the old '87 Miami starter jackets, the green metallic ones? That would make it complete. Now that would be an American dream right there.
Steve, I don't know if this is your area of expertise, but I just wanted to bring it up to you. Did you see Joe Smith? I think he was the former number one overall pick in the NBA. Had put up good numbers with the Golden State Warriors, some other teams. His wife relaunched or started a career on OnlyFans.
God.
Let's watch Joe Smith. Somehow he's arguing with his wife, and she's filming it.
I have an OnlyFans page, and he's mad because he's just now finding out about it.
Of course I'm mad when you just finding out about it.
I'm not doing it with anybody but myself, so why should I have to tell you my choice, my body, my choice?
Your partner, you're supposed to come to me and talk to me.
Joe, I've been talking to you about mad things. I've been asking for solutions to shit. You're not giving me none, so I created one.
That's no solution. Not in my book. That's no
You
solution.
knew who the was when you met me.
Before,
Before,
we met, I
and
knew
I
that.
thought that I would never have to go back to anything like this again.
Beforehand,
but
but
unfortunately,
no.
that's not the case right now.
After that, everything's supposed to change.
Everything did change.
No. Obviously it hasn't.
No, it had to. I had to do
Obviously
something.
It hasn't. You stood out there showing your body. You stood out there doing stuff like this on camera.
You act like that's the only thing that I do. I have mad jobs, but they're not facilitating everything that needs to be done. So I got something extra. OnlyFans be breaking me off. What the
Come on, Keisha, with that. It don't matter what they breaking you off. It's the disrespect that comes with it.
What disrespect?
You couldn't come and talk to me about it.
Okay,
All right,
well,
I've seen
we're
enough.
talking
I've seen
about-
it. So Steve, Joe Smith made $61 million in the NBA. And his wife still needs a side hustle on OnlyFans. And clearly, Joe met her while she was in the life. You knew who I was when you met me. I was a 304 when you met me. Why you think I'm a 303 now?
I mean, look, obviously you can't turn into a housewife. I guess that's true. And I don't know what their financial situation is. That's a pretty nice house, but I do find that to be incredibly disrespectful. And to put that on air and to make Joe look like that, I don't know what their financial situation is. And obviously Joe is not a fan. But I do wonder, what are they going through? And she's talking about she has mad jobs. What is she, the Hadleys from In Living Color? That Jamaican family? Everyone had like 10 jobs. I don't understand that. The other thing is, and I'm being dead serious, even though I'm joking, it's really too bad that Joe Smith, the pride of Maryland, #1 pick, I think 95, was never coached by Coach Greg Adams. We need to get Greg Adams on. Greg Adams has been warning us. Coach Greg Adams, if you're out there, shout out to you, my friend. You do some fine work. You are on my YouTube rotation. But I feel bad for Joe Smith. But at the same time, you're right. He made a lot of money. But I just wonder how much of that was squandered, how much of that was saved. But there is a lesson to be learned that Coach Greg Adams talks about all the time. Sometimes a person's past will actually determine their present and future. They don't change. They never will change. And some are, unfortunately, for the streets. And it looks like maybe she still is. Joe, if you can get out, if you have a prenup, opt out like all the other NBA guys. Opt out. Get out of there. But
it sounds like part of the problem Joe's having here, clearly, he probably met this woman while he was still really wealthy, and maybe he won her over with his wealth. And so she has those expectations. Hey, I'm getting out of this life. I'm used to having a lot of money. I'm used to blowing money however I want. And that continued post his career. Now he's clearly can't provide for her at the standard she's used to or grown accustomed to. And it's blown up in his face. I have some sympathy for Joe, but not as much as you would think. I don't like her filming this and making it content and all that other stuff. That's disrespectful. But her statement of like, hey, you knew who I was. You knew how I got down. That's why you like me. Now you mad? You met me in a strip club. I'm just doing a strip. I'm just stripping on OnlyFans. That's her argument.
Here's my message to T-Pain. And T-Pain, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. How come your song couldn't be "Don't Fall in Love with the Stripper"? And instead of I mean, you could have warned everybody. But again, get
that
Greg
song.
Adams. Yeah, I mean, seriously.
That song, unfortunately, used to be my national anthem.
You lived it.
Steve. Yeah, that's unfortunately. Steve, I'm gonna bring up one last topic with you, and then I'm gonna let you go. Simone Biles and Taylor Swift, and this connects to my original topic and what we talked about earlier about social media and how I think it's rigged, and you just never know who these people are that are complaining about certain things, but people over Twitter complain that Simone Biles, who's married to, I think, a Green Bay Packers player, why isn't she getting the same amount of love as Taylor Swift for dating Travis Kelce? Obviously, it's a stupid question. Taylor Swift is an iconic pop star who has a huge social media following, and I'm sure Simone Biles has some followers, but she's a gymnast or whatever. There's just no comparing a gymnast, an Olympian gymnast, to a pop star. It's like comparing Michael Jackson created a different level of passion than Carl Lewis in both of their heydays. And that's why I just feel like whoever's tweeting out these complaints, this is intentional. This is all just to stir up division and conflict and racial animus. It's not real. I don't think anybody really thinks like, man, the NFL and the television networks aren't showing enough love to Simone Biles and her husband, Jonathan Owens, the free safety for the Packers. And I think what ended up coming out is like she went to a preseason game, and this past week is the first regular season game she's attended. But anyway, are they dissing Simone Biles by not showing her the same amount of love as Taylor Swift?
Look, those who bring it up, and to be fair, there's not that many. These people are perennial malcontents. This is what they live for. But the other issue is this. Jonathan Owens is good enough to make the NFL, but he does not have the same caliber of resume of Travis Kelce. I mean, Travis Kelce is not only a great player, Jason. I hate to say it because I'm a Rob Gronkowski homer. He might be the greatest tight end ever. And that pains me to say as someone that grew up watching Kellen Winslow and Shannon Sharp. But you look at Kelce, he might be the greatest who ever lived. You don't think so?
He's not the greatest Kansas City tight end. He's not the greatest Kansas City tight end.
Okay, but but there's an argument, though. There is an argument. And again, rings don't matter all of a sudden. Okay, 20 minutes ago, rings were about everything. Now it doesn't matter.
Eras. I mean, this past happy era where, they walk you off the line of scrimmage. It's not that Kelce's great, but I've seen them both. I covered Tony Gonzalez's career. He's not as good as Tony. Tony Gonzalez would put up incredible numbers with Patrick Mahomes.
I'm going to be partial to Tony Gonzalez, okay? But the other thing is, one thing I've never seen or heard about Taylor Swift doing in the middle of a concert? Quitting. No, she actually does her job. She looks at all those Swifties that spend their mortgage, right? Baby, you don't need new shoes. Son, you don't need new braces. We are Swifties. You know what she does? She just steps up to that plate and she says, God dog it, you're going to listen to my lukewarm music. I'm going to pop you to death. She never quits on her team. So right there, that's why she's a serious person that I don't pay attention to. But let's just be honest about it. I've never understood the Simone Biles praise for quitting on her team. Mary Lou Retton, I think she went through some battles a couple of weeks ago. She's fighting for her. I knew she wouldn't quit. I knew Mary Lou, you're going to hang it. And Terry Strug, remember her ankle was hanging out of the foot? And she just said, you know what? I'm going to do this for America. They didn't quit. So America, we don't like quitters. That's what it is, Jason. Right there.
It's certainly all of that. And I love the point that both Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are bigger stars than Simone Biles and Jonathan Owens in both of their fields. And Travis Kelce's probably a bigger deal than even Simone Biles just as an athlete. And we know as a pop star, Taylor Swift is a bigger deal. And it's everything is driven by ratings. It's again, the television networks aren't sitting there going, well, there's some popular woman that's married to an NFL player. They're only interested in that Taylor Swift has a huge audience that might become NFL fans. Simone Biles does not have some huge audience that might become NFL fans, so the television networks aren't interested. It's really that simple, but I'll go back to it. And Steve, thank you, and we'll see you later this week. But I'll go back to this whole thing is just rigged up. And I can remember years ago, and I talked about this on a show years ago when I was out in LA, and I saw these posters that were posted around LA, where did I live? Westwood, Beverly Hills, Brentwood. They're posted all around that. It's Century City, telling people to sign up for jobs, paying $15, $16 an hour as a social justice protester. And I can remember tearing one of these down and looking at it, and there was a phone number to call. And it's like, if you wanted a job, being a social justice protester, we got one for you. And I thought at the time, I was like, yeah, these people are paid to go to protest, but they're also paid to sit on their laptop or sit on their phone and stir up anger and stir up a racial narrative that promotes some political agenda. And that's what you have. People that are getting paid $15, $16, $20 an hour to sit online and tweet out, oh, this is racist, that's racist, to drive conversations around these celebrities and distract us and to keep us at each other's throats and to convince everybody to look at everything through a racial lens. People are being paid money to do this. And celebrities and that are connected to these big agencies like CAA and WME, they have teams, those agencies have teams that are in charge of controlling the social media conversation around the people they represent. And in the political world, it's the exact same thing. There's social media teams that are paid to control what's said about political candidates and all of that. It's all part of this rigged up matrix. And anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest. We're going to pivot and start talking about the mission of this show, and some of it's connected to what we just unpacked here, trying to show you what's going on in the sports world and connected to a larger conversation. And we're going to do that as we talk about the show here in a second. But before I take a break and come back and pivot to a different conversation, I want to tell you about Blaze TV and Blaze News. We've been talking to you about big tech censorship and telling you about a major step Blaze Media is taking to declare independence from big tech and ensure we can keep bringing you the truth no matter what. If you go to Blaze Media's website, theblaze.com, right now, you will see it's been totally overhauled. You'll see news articles, opinion, analysis, lifestyle, and tech commentary. But what you will not see are those obnoxious ads that are on virtually every other website. Here's why this is such a big deal. Most people don't realize that by having those ads on our website, Google was able to send bots to scour for any content they deemed unsafe for advertisers. After finding something they didn't like, they demand we remove ads from that article or else have our entire website demonetized. We dealt with this time and time again, and here's the worst part. After forcing us to remove ads from problematic articles, Google buried those articles so deep in the search results that they became nearly impossible to find. Google was essentially using its ad revenue as a cudgel to either force us to be the leftists, to toe the leftist line, or bury the unsafe content so no one could find it. That's why we're walking away from ads on our website. The decision to go ad-free will cost us millions of dollars, but we did not make it lightly. None of this is possible without you. We're counting on you to make sure we continue to bring you unfiltered truth. We're taking a gamble by investing in more quality content, including expert analysis, insightful commentary, and authentic investigative reporting. Visit theblaze.com, explore the all-new ad-free experience, and see for yourself how we're standing up against suppression and prioritizing independent journalism. Go to theblaze.com right now. Please become a subscriber. $3 a month, you get to support Blaze News. Just $3 a cup of coffee. News and truth you can count on. The other thing you can do is mark your calendars for this Thursday, November 2nd. Another Fearless Army Cookout, the Gold Jacket edition. We're bringing in NFL Hall of Famers Brett Favre, Warren Sapp, Marshall Faulk, and Brian Urlacher live on Thursday, November 2nd. Our show at 6 p.m. Central Time on YouTube and Blaze TV. You can come and join us. FearlessArmyTickets.com. You can hang out with us at the cookout, get something to drink, meet some Hall of Famers, talk to me about whatever you want to talk about. Don't miss Thursday's show. And we'll also air some of this on Friday as well. When we come back, I'm going to talk about this show and restate and re-educate, reaffirm what the actual mission of this show is next.
It's my obligation, no hate, discrimination, raising up your hands for freedom.
Brett Favre, previously on Fearless.
I think that there is a certain level of that. Some guys tend to handle it better than others. But I think you have to, quarterbacks, we always talk about this. They get way too much glory and way too much blame. And I think that that's absolutely true. So I think in Kirk's case, I think really in any quarterback's, there's a lot of factors that go into your success or lack thereof. Your decision-making is solely based upon you. That the burden falls on you to make the right decisions in the accurate throws. But you can't control blocking, catching, route running, play calling. Those are factors you can't control. And as hard as it was for me to block out the things I couldn't control, I found that sometimes I would lose that battle. And I would be more concerned about whether protection is not holding up or the route running is suspect. And that would cause my game to decline. But that would fall upon me.
All right, welcome back. So obviously this week, if you watched yesterday's show, there's been a conversation created around this show that I want to address, and if you missed yesterday's show, I went into an explanation of why we discharged Royce White from the Fearless Army, and he won't be a contributor here anymore. Go watch yesterday's show if you want a full explanation on that. But Royce's departure has created a conversation around this show that I want to address, and it's a reminder to me that perhaps I haven't been doing a good enough job of reminding you, the audience, and even people on my team of what the mission actually is and what this show actually is. And so I'm going to start here with the team that is here with me in Nashville. Every day they walk in and they see this big poster, billboard hanging in our office. We got a couple others hanging here in the office. And it's a reminder, it's a mission statement and our values. Throw this up on screen. I want to start with the mission statement. And we've made no secret of this. I think I've talked about it on previous shows, but I just want to put it out there as a reminder. Fearless is a digital media platform promoting a culture of fearlessness, free speech, biblical truth, and patriotism. That is the mission. We have not, keep that up on screen, we have not deterred from that. That is the mission. Digital media platform promoting a culture is very important, of fearlessness, free speech, biblical truth, and patriotism. This is not a explicitly or even in any way intentionally, this is not a political show. I've been very clear. I've never voted. I don't like politics or really any politicians. I've also shared with you all the reason why I lean into Trump is because he's not a politician, or he was not a politician. And so that's what I liked about him, his unorthodox, authentic, and flawed ways. He's the guy that I believe tries to do what he says he's going to do. Does he make mistakes? Absolutely. Does he do things that I don't like? Absolutely. But that's where my affinity for Trump stems from. I know some politicians and have had close relationships with some high profile politicians. But in my heart of hearts, I don't like politicians. And so it's no different than when you hear me talk about, I don't like elites, even though people would consider me an elite, even though I've had some elite friends. I don't really like Ivy League educated people. I've had some Ivy League friends. I don't, but in my nature, I just don't like politics and politicians. I get they're a necessary evil, but it's not my jam. It's just not. And so what I'm passionate about is sports and culture and the Bible and America, patriotism. That's what I'm passionate about. And so what I believe is that God blessed me with a unique ability to talk about sports in a way that allows me to connect what's going on in sports to the rest of the culture, to talk about what's going on in America, to talk about the importance of free speech, and to show you how sports connect to a biblical worldview and how we're being distracted and away from a biblical worldview through sports when sports used to promote and adhere to a biblical worldview. So I believe God gifted me with some, because it's not me. You go look at my high school transcripts, college transcripts. If you just listen to me talk, I'm just not that smart. God gave me a unique gift to understand sports and to talk about sports in a unique way and in a unique ability to be able to see the connections in sports to the rest of the culture. And so I'm trying to use that gift to promote a culture of fearlessness, because if you're really walking with God, you're not fearful. Free speech, I believe that's vitally important. That free speech is connected to religious freedoms, biblical truth that speaks for itself, and patriotism, because I like and love America because of its support of free speech, because fearless people built this country, because our founding principles, many of them were taken straight from the Bible. This is our mission statement. It's on screen right there. That's our mission statement. The things that are listed underneath the mission statement: masculinity, created the freedom you take for granted. And this is a reminder to me and to the rest of the staff. We talk about masculinity all the time. They want to make you ashamed of being masculine. They want to make you ashamed of the patriarchy and male leadership. I'm trying to fight against that because God believes in masculine male energy and leadership. Some of this is just related to overall approach to shows. I believe in compelling over comprehensive. And that's why a lot of this show is built around one big topic, because we're not trying to cover everything. We're not ESPN. We don't have some massive staff where we can be comprehensive. We want to be compelling. And that's why I limit the topics, because there's only so many topics I can be compelling about in any day. And I pour most of that energy into the fire starter, because I want us to be really compelling. Pity pays no bills. I don't like feeling sorry for myself. It doesn't move the needle. There is no value to pitying yourself. Then it's just another, because again, I'm big on this masculine thing. Thank God Jesus was masculine. Everybody loves to talk about, forgiveness and, Jesus loved everybody. This dude was the most masculine man to ever walk the planet. He wasn't flabby like me. This dude was super masculine. God's truth over your truth. That's a reminder. We're going to bow to what the Bible says and not what I say or anybody else says. That's why we do Tennessee Harmony. That's why so much of our conversation is littered with God in the Bible. I'm sorry if that's off-putting to you non-believers, but the foundation of truth is found in the Bible. And that truth trumps any truth that I have or anybody else has. Then I'd say, thank God, praise Jesus, embrace the Holy Spirit. That explains itself. Windshield over rearview mirror. Let's look ahead. Let's don't spend a whole bunch of time looking back. There's nothing back there that you can do anything about. Look ahead. If you hear me, all this hyper focus on history and, your ancestors experienced this or that. No, look in the windshield and figure out what you're going to do so that your offsprings benefit, so that the generation behind us benefits. Look through the windshield. What are you doing to make things better for the young people coming behind us and the young people you may create? Accept the truth from wherever it comes. This means that if someone I don't like says something that is true, hey, today is Tuesday, I just got to deal with it. It doesn't matter whether I like them or not, whether they're on my team or not, whether they're members of the KKK or the Black Panther Party. If it's the truth, I just have to deal with it. All solutions start in your mirror. That I'm not a victim. I got to fix my problems. I want to lose the weight. I got to get on the Stairmaster. I got to eat right. It's not TJ Moe's job to lose weight for me. And then finally, faith, fathers, and families fueled America. We need a refill. I think that speaks for itself. The other thing we have on the wall here is just, some words of encouragement about be courageous, follow truth, be authentic, seek self-awareness, and take responsibility. And then finally, as it relates to the Fearless Army, the group that I'm recruiting you all to join me in. And what is the Fearless Army? The Fearless Army is a collective of men and women who believe bearing witness to truth requires courage, not perfection. That is all related to the point I keep trying to make about myself. I'm very flawed. I've done some really inappropriate things that, quite frankly, I'm ashamed of. But I'm not going to let those things in my past stop me from telling the truth. Stop me from representing my biblical worldview. I see too many believers silenced by their sin. I reject that. My sin is part of my testimony. And I'm trying to use this show to inspire other men not to celebrate their sin, but don't let your sin silence you. Make it part of your testimony. Make it part of, hey guys, I did X, Y, and Z, and I prioritized the wrong things. I talk about it all. I mean, it's really embarrassing for me. but I'm just trying to model behavior that, one, helps me improve and then invites other men to like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. That's helping Whitlock. Maybe it will help me. And so when I come on air and tell you that, and it's a true story and it's embarrassing, but I tell you that like God put someone in my life, a woman that was awesome and meant for me. And I've shared this with you all. And I let my friend help me reach the conclusion that her butt wasn't as big as the girl I was sleeping with. And why in the heck would you kick so-and-so to the curb when her booty's not as big as such and such? I was that retarded. I'm not proud of that. But I know if I'm that stupid, other men are capable, young men particularly, are capable of being that stupid. And so I share it because I don't want my idiocy to silence me from sharing with you what I think can help you not make the mistakes that I made. And so this show is about using the sports world and using my special insight and special ability to talk about sports and culture and other issues to try to explain to the audience and to myself the benefits of adhering to a biblical worldview and biblical actions. This show is me trying to make sure that I am reminded every day, boy, you better stick to that Bible. Because you remember all the dumb things you did that you now fully regret and what it cost you and what path it led you on? I'm trying to minister to myself, and I'm inviting other men to help me and women help me minister to others. Because God gave me certain gifts. And so when I hear someone foolishly and very arrogantly talk about they know what God has called me to do, and it's a young person, and they're like, no, I know what you need to do, and it's your calling, and I'm just trying to help you understand what your calling is. I'm like, really? You know? You know what God wants from me? You know what that sounds like? A Marxist. That sounds like someone that believes they're God. It's almost like I haven't lived these 56 years. This other person, they know what's for me and what God has for me. Really. And it's to talk politics because World War III is coming. Really. If World War III is coming, we need Jesus. Are you kidding me? You're going to pull me from trying to bring people to Jesus when you think nuclear bombs are headed our way? I don't care about no politics. And I don't care about any of the political people that hate me. We need salvation. You sound like an idiot. You sound like the devil. And so people are saying, oh, you know, you grant Roy some grace and forgiveness and willing to do all that. But when someone hops on a platform and starts telling me to come up off of this, what God put on my heart, and then start telling people, oh no, there's some magical Jewish people that are telling you what to do. They're pulling your strings when I know God is pulling my strings because he put me on my knees and made me beg for forgiveness. It's comical. It's sad. It's disrespectful. And so my mother, 3 years ago, got to give her credit for this because she reminds me of it virtually every day or every time I talk to her for the past 18 months. She told me that I made a mistake when I launched this show. And I'm not saying this to cause any animus, I'm just keeping it real. But my mother told me when I launched this show, she's like, Jason, what are you doing? Why is Uncle Jimmy, she didn't call him Uncle Jimmy. Why is Jimmy pictured, because Jimmy wasn't my uncle, he was a friend of mine. But why is Jimmy on this poster with you like he's your co-host? And I was like, well, he's my sidekick and, she goes, well, you're creating trouble. Jimmy's going to think he's your equal and he's your co-host. That's going to be problematic for you. I was like, oh, Mama, no. Why would Jimmy think that? That's crazy. I done put 30 years into the game. I created this opportunity. No, I'm just trying to put a little spotlight on Jimmy and, trying to be inclusive. And my mother was like, that's going to blow up in your face, boy. And it blew up in my face. And so as things have blown up in my face again, I've looked and said to myself, like, hey, am I misleading the contributors? Am I misleading the audience by trying to share my spotlight and focus my spotlight on other people that I think have shared values with me? And I think it's part of my calling to uplift others and to help them reach their goals and to share, because I'm not trying to do this alone, but am I creating an impression with these pictures, the group shots at the top of the page? I've had to think about this, like, did I bring this on myself? And when I celebrate the people that contribute on this show and tell them how smart they are and tell them how thoughtful they are, am I doing something that maybe I should back up off of because it tends to blow up in my face, and perhaps I'm making people think that I am retarded, that I'm still that retarded idiot who who walked away from a woman because her booty wasn't big enough. And so I look at other situations, maybe the way I present myself, the way I talk or whatever, but there's some dude that's been stalking me on Twitter for 2 years now because I quit doing a podcast with him. And I'm like, how did this happen? Why? Why are people having this incredible reaction to me when I got something else I'm doing? I was trying to help you out. And next thing you know, they're a stalker for 2 years, still going to this day. No, it's been 3 years now. And so I'm bringing Delano and Shamika on to some degree, and I'm reaching out to all the contributors and getting their thoughts. And like, am I creating confusion about what this show is, what I'm trying to do, and why I've spent 3 years now trying to uplift others? And have I created some sort of false impression that this show isn't about my vision? I don't like to beat my chest and say, this is my way or blah, blah, blah. But this is what God put on my heart, and I've asked people to join me in it, but I'm fearful. I don't want to create any more problems and have any more people go, nah, Jay, I know what you should do. I talked to God last night, and he wants you to talk about politics. or he wants you to talk about Britney Spears tomorrow. I want to make sure we have that clarity, and I want the audience to have that clarity. I love the contributors. Steve Kim, we have him on 3-4 times a week. He's clearly our most talented contributor. Me and Steve Kim could do the best national sports talk show maybe in the history of sports talk. And I say that sincerely. But for the most part, Steve sends me suggestions every day pretty much, but we talk about what I want to talk about. And Steve's good with that. And these, Shamika in particular, TJ Moe in particular, but these guys help me come up with things, but it's my show. And I've laid out the vision. I've told everybody what the vision is. I hang it up on walls. I think I'm reminded, but I don't want the audience to get caught up in like, oh, there is no show without the contributors. and again, the contributors, this is what cracks me up about all this outside puppet masters in control. And this is me just being completely transparent. If I did what the Blaze wanted me to do, Tyler Carden and Gaston Mooney, there would be no contributors. There would just be me talking, period, end of story. That's what they wanted to do, and maybe probably still want to do. I wanted to do something else and want to do something else. I want to invite people in on this journey with me and be a model to the rest of the world that, you know, we can come together, white guy, Korean guy, black people, we can all come together. And Steve Kim's not even religious. And so I don't have some kind of religious requirement. But we can all come together and do a good show and get along with each other and have conversations that help entertain, uplift, educate, promote thought, different way of thinking about things. But I hate that this sounds arrogant, but at the end, I am the show. And the contributors' jobs aren't Supreme Court justices. There are no lifetime appointments. Would I like for all of them to stay with me the entire time? Absolutely. But if you decide as a contributor, hey, I'm dissatisfied with my role, and I want to do something different, I want to do my own show, I don't like the role you've carved out for me, so I've decided to leave and move back to Kansas City, I can't do anything about that. Okay, show must go on. If you decide, because of World War III, you want to talk politics, have at it. I'm not going to try to stop you. Go watch it. If you're in the audience and you think World War III is coming and that's all you want to talk about, go listen to something else. We will occasionally touch on those topics, but I'm not changing this show. I've given a lot of thought about what God wants me to do. And there is no contributor. My mama couldn't pull me up off what I wanted to do, what God has put on my heart to do. And I want to be crystal clear. One last thing before we're going to bring Delano on. And on everything that I hold dear, everything, there's no one that has tried to convince me to change this show. No one told me to edit anything out. No one is pulling puppet strings. I've talked to Mark Levin 3 times. He does not own the Blaze. Neither does Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck doesn't have a cell phone. He's not calling me No one on his staff is calling me, telling me what to do. If you don't like something on this show, blame me. I'm the most stubborn person I've ever met. And when I think God told me to do this, I'd rather die. So we'll bring Delano on, and I'm just bring him on for some clarity. I'm not browbeating anybody, but I just want to make sure with some of our contributors. I've talked to TJ Moe about this off air, but I just want to have a bit of a public discussion about, we good with the vision and what we're doing here? And somehow, am I unfair in some way? Anyway, so Delano Squires next.
Jason Whitlock, previously on Fearless.
I believe Bud Light was really a marketing department and a marketing person out of control. I don't think the entire company or the people at the very top were like, yeah, let's rebrand and reach out to the whole transgender deal. I just think the whole PR marketing group, and I'm talking about across the country, they all think it's their job to make America gay, and that's how the next generation's all gonna be gay, and it's all gonna be gender fluid, and you need to be there. And Bud Light just learned a lesson of like, nah, that ain't where our customer base is, and we need to stay loyal to our customer base. Let's reward Dana White. All right, welcome back. Delano, I don't want to drag you into my hot mess, but I do want your thoughts on if I've been clear or maybe confusing about what it is we're trying to do here. I'm trying to check with the contributors, like, have I created some false impression or some bad? Anyway, do you understand what I'm trying to do here, and have I been clear, consistently clear on what we're trying to do here, or maybe I've been fuzzy?
No, Jason, it hasn't been fuzzy. I mean, I actually take it as a point of privilege and high honor to have been on this show since the second episode aired, July 6, 2021. When you and I spoke before that, prior to coming over to the Blaze, we had a long conversation about what the show was about, your vision for it, and I think you've been consistent with that, right? And I think we both, and I think everyone on the show has grown from the perspective of being more public and articulate about addressing the issues that we see in the culture through a prism of faith, at times using sports and entertainment as opportunities to hit on larger sort of cultural or social topics. So that part has always been clear. I mean, to the extent that we've gotten into political issues, I think that's probably because everything is becoming more politicized. 20 years ago, would a sports reporter have been talking about a professional sports team who's having a pride night and the impact of athletes who want to refuse, or a sports franchise in a city like Los Angeles hosting drag queens who disparage and disrespect the Catholic Church? No, those issues weren't on the table, but they are now. So we address them and address them oftentimes through, a biblical worldview, a biblical lens. None of us are perfect, obviously, but we try as much to bring our faith perspectives, different as they may be at times, bring those things to bear on the issues that are really important. So that's never been a question for me. So yeah, I'm till the wheels fall off. I'm a rock with you and the Fearless Project, and continue to do what we've been doing since day one.
So, And Delano, I know that you don't come on the show as often as you used to, and that the show has evolved over time, and that's what happens. And it's like Chocolate Knox, Dave Shannon, I can remember when we first got him on board as a contributor, I was like, yeah, Dave, you're going to come on once or twice a week. And I haven't been able to deliver on that because the show's just evolved, but I still consider you and everybody a valuable weapon, tool that can be utilized at any time. But you and I have, because, and particularly for you, you've gotten more feedback from me than anybody because you were writing very often, and so you'd hear from me directly about, hey, change this, or I don't do this, and so I want to be clear here, Delano, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you can write and have whatever point of view you want. There have been times when I've been like, well, if you're trying to get this point across, do it in this order or do it this way. But has my feedback, and because again, it's why I'm very reluctant to give feedback, because I live in fear of people, because people aren't real good with direct feedback. And that seems, because I'm giving some very simple instructions and I'm looking at someone get triggered by it, and I'm like, wow, this blows me away. But you and I have had that relationship, and I know I've said probably some things that, didn't feel the best, but I think that they were never delivered with any intent other than to make you better.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes I think I'm one of the last of the Mohicans, because it feels like younger generations don't handle direct feedback or criticism as well. And part of it, I think, is just sort of my personality, and part of it is just, the context in which I grew up, where older men poured into us, and oftentimes that pouring into was, direct feedback, was discipline, was structure, was order. So I'm used to it, but I come from the position that, our relationship is one in which you are trying to help me sharpen my blade. And if my inclination is to say, let's say I'm writing on a topic and I give 3 paragraphs of background information, and then in the 4th paragraph I say, well, here's my opinion, here's my spicy take. Your thing is like, look, man, move the opinion up, stop with all the filler, and we'll address the issue, but lead with something that makes people want to continue reading to paragraph number 4. And I always take that type of coaching as this. I'm saying this as someone who's been in this business for a long time, and I know what good writing looks like, and I know you want to be a good writer. I'm saying this because I know that this will help you better communicate what the ideas that you have, which I think need to be heard from a much broader audience and a broader perspective. And that's been invaluable for me. And yeah, you're right. I'm not on the show as often, and obviously part of that is what, where you're focusing, with the show. And part of it, honestly, is my own schedule with some of the work that I'm doing in the Heritage Foundation. But when people at Heritage say, hey man, that was a great op-ed, like, you're a natural writer, a huge part of that is the last 2 years, 2 times every week, that boot camp, that 2-year boot camp of making me into a much sharper thinker and a much better writer. So no, I'm good with hard coaching. That is no problem. I never take it personally. Sometimes I may talk to my wife and say, man, I don't agree with that. But then at the end of the day, I say, let me implement it, and I see how it works. And I think every relationship has ebbs and flows. So I have no problem. I'd love to be on the show twice a week, but I understand that, that may not be the case in this season. But once the Dallas Cowboys win the Super Bowl in February, my expectation is, I'll be right back there in the seat Tuesday and Friday, and we'll be talking about the issues that, that need and require our attention. But no, I'm good. I'm good with coaching because I think the ultimate aim is for all of us, to get better at the things that we do, to be bolder in the public square, and really even more than that, to grow in our knowledge in terms of who we are, whose we are. And I appreciate that.
And so I think, and I'm not fishing for compliments, I'm just trying to keep it real, but I think what I've tried to model on this show is Delano and Anthony and TJ and Virgil and sometimes Shamika even, they sharpen my sword biblically. And I sit around and think about my spiritual growth and how this show has helped me and how you all mocked me on this show for my support of Mike Todd. Mocked me. And I've never run from that. I needed that. It helped open my eyes. And so it's not in any way a one-way street. I have a gift in writing and communication. You all are further along in your spiritual journey and have and something that I'm passionate about, spiritual growth. I allow that and invite it, and that's been the beauty of this show, and that's the journey I'm asking people to go along with, wherever you're at in your walk. Be open to these other believers that may be able to sharpen your sword spiritually.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been great to be able to see that up close and personal. Like, for instance, I remember you, I was in person one time, this was early on in the show, when you were taping, and you had a segment with another Blaze personality. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Chad Prather. And you all ended up talking about The Bachelor, one of these shows, and it was like an interracial couple, and there were some off-color jokes. And I think part of what you may have said to me is like, look, I'm going to keep you away from that because I know, where you are and what it is you're trying to do. I'm not even going to drag you into some of these conversations. And I appreciated that then, but the reason I share that is because it's hard for me to see you having that same type of segment with the same commentary today. And I won't even get into the one joke that I remember, but to say it was off color is somewhat of an understatement, because I've seen, that personal growth and maturation and that passion. Like when we did Roll Call, and to see the genuine passion you have for seeing men come together and want to assume their role in their families and their communities and the broader society, like that's legit. And I appreciate that. As a guy who's in the trenches, with a family, someone, of your age and of your stature could be like, look, man, I'm not married. I don't have kids. I'm not really invested in the fight that you all are fighting. I'm trying to maximize my pleasure on a daily basis, and you guys can work all that stuff out. But that's not what you're doing. And as I said, I appreciate that. And then the other thing is this, and obviously you know better than anybody else. You get a ton of heat, a ton of flack, a ton of criticism. But one of the things, and I was saying this to somebody the other day, that separates this generation from previous generations, and I'm not talking about age, I'm talking about where we are in terms of this American era, is that people of a previous generation who had means and resources and power and authority and influence typically wanted to use that for the benefit of those who didn't have those things. And most of what people do today who have a platform, much of what they do is use their platform to kvetch and moan about how bad people are talking about them. And this person said this thing about me, and they whine and they cry and they're afraid of criticism and they try to run from it. Whereas on this show, it's like, no, I'll invite differences of opinion. And sometimes in the Mike Todd's, incident, like deep criticism of people and personalities that I actually like, and never running from that. And that is rare in today's culture. So, kudos to you. And I know there have been questions about the platform and, directions that it's taken. But, when I signed up for the Fearless Army, it's like I had a particular thing in mind. It's just like, look, men have become weak and docile and emasculated. And this venue, this platform is going to be one part of a larger ecosystem of helping to call back guys to their responsibilities, particularly in the family, in the home, and in the culture.
So the other area where, and this is as it relates to Delano, has happened more off air than on air. Steve Kim has questioned me on air about it. But Delano, you've had questions about why you being so hard on Deion Sanders. I would love to hear your perspective on why you've questioned me about that off air.
Sure. Yeah. It was curious to me because, again, Deion is very much talked about in media and sports culture. And I mean, first couple of games, everything in the sports ecosystem was revolving around him. But I was just curious as to what extent you feel a focus on Deion at this point, after every win or loss, is relevant, productive, and how you see that sort of informing the broader vision for Fearless. And I asked that question, and let me state something for the record. Let me preface my statement. I think I texted you a few weeks ago and said, look, when I see you talking to Sapp and Favre and Hall of Famers and Seth Joyner and even Sage Steele, I see a man who's very much in his zone, right? Because I know the difference between, okay, you're talking, you're speaking, you're meeting with people and effective in what you're doing. And when you get to unbutton the jacket a little bit and say, now I'm at home, I'm at rest, I'm speaking freely, I'm speaking my native tongue, which is sports. And I like that because I think anytime somebody is in their most comfortable background, a part of them comes out that tends to not come out in other instances. But that being said, I'm sure I'm not the only person that's asked myself, okay, the 10th story on Deion, what larger purpose is this playing with respect to the mission of the show and the vision you have, for Fearless?
Well, Deion, to me, there's several things at work here. Everybody has spent the entire football season talking about Deion. He trends every Saturday into Sunday over social media. What he says in postgame, what goes on the field. People that ask me that question, it's like, well, everybody else is talking about Deion. When I flip on ESPN or Fox Sports, they're talking about Deion, and everybody's comfortable with that because everybody's just, oh, Deion's the greatest. Deion's the greatest. Deion is going to revolutionize football. Everybody's comfortable with that conversation about Deion, and so if every day I had celebrated Deion, no one would question. Why are you talking about Deion? No one would question that. And so I'm taking something that's popular and that everybody's talking about. My mother's watching Deion games. She's a Colorado fan. Early on, Shamika, she was out buying Colorado gear, and one of my best friends, I'm gonna call Brashad out. Brashad lives in Texas. He pops up on Instagram. We coming on his shirt, and to see you, Bubba. And so I'm like, well, here's a perfect opportunity to talk about idolatry, and here's a perfect opportunity to talk about the dangers of idolatry, and here's a way for me to, one, look smarter than the rest of the sports world who is out, hey, this is going to work, this is going to be great. And I'm like, no, this is not going to work. This is not sustainable. It's Deion, again, I've said this to others, and maybe I've said it on the show, but he's Mike Todd. And so the same way y'all could see like the folly of Mike Todd and like, man, Jason, that's going to blow up in your face. I'm looking at Deion and I can see the exact same, because again, this is my area of expertise. And I was like, the stuff Deion's doing from when he first press conference, y'all uncomfortable because I'm black. Like, that's going to blow up in his face. Now every coach that he faces is going to have a chip on their shoulder, and it's going to do what that Oregon coach did. That when he started talking about his son as a Heisman Trophy candidate after one game or two games, whatever, that's going to blow up in his face. That's not going to play well in the locker room. Deion's doing things virtually every day that aren't sustainable. And yes, he's drawing a big crowd and everybody's coming, but I'm like, that's good. One day, he's going to get to an Easter Sunday, a football Easter Sunday, and women are going to be twerking on stage at the Colorado game. I'm giving a Mike Todd analogy. And then everybody's, and they're going to be like me, sitting there going, dang, Delano and Anthony and Virgil, they was right. And so I'm just using it to explain the dangers of idolatry, using it to explain the dangers of a lack of humility. Again, 56 years old, me and Deion are the exact same age. We've made so many mistakes. All men, by our age, have made so many mistakes. I mean, I thank God every day that I put on my pants right and that I don't make a fool out of myself, because I think about all the foolish things I've done. It's like, oh God, people saw me do that. And so I just don't see any humility from Deion, and that lack of humility is going to blow up in his face. And I see it as an opportunity to speak to men about, hey, let's take these gold chains off. Let's quit worrying about what rapper is coming to the game or how cool we look, and let's get down to some real substance here. And if Deion wants to build something sustainable, it needs to be about real substance and not selling sunglasses and Offset and Key Glock being at the games.
Right.
And so I was just using it as an opportunity to talk about the issues that I'm passionate about, and idolatry is at the root of all sins. And I've never seen, in the sports world, I've never seen an instant idol golden calf created, just takes the Colorado job. Next thing you know, Deion can do no wrong. That's a mistake. And so
let me ask this, Jason.
Yep.
Do you think that you run the risk, and I'll throw out a name that some of the audience may know, do you think your focus on countering the idolatry you see with Deion Sanders runs the risk of turning you into the sports world's version of David French, who, in an effort to counter the idolatry that he felt he saw, particularly among white evangelicals, as it relates to this sort of blind support at times of Trump, ended up himself making Trump an idol, because he was so focused on saying all of these things are what's wrong with Trump and reflections of what's wrong with the broader culture, and evangelicals are not seeing them, that he made Trump the ultimate source of his sort of counter affections. And I wonder, do you think that that's possible, that such an intense focus on what Deion you feel he's doing wrong, makes you focus in on him in an idolatrous fashion and blinds you to some of the things that he might be doing that are actually good? So when he says, hey, I'm not just trying to turn out football players, I'm trying to turn out guys who are good fathers, good men, who are stand-up, honest guys, men of their word.
You're making my argument about Mike Todd. You're making that was my defense of Mike Todd. Well, yeah, I know he's doing this and that. And I don't like the way he dresses, and I don't like, oh yeah, he's spitting some dude's face. And yeah, but you're missing out on all the good things he's doing. And literally, y'all were sitting there like, nah, these ain't actually good things. These are publicity stunts or whatever to get people in. He's not actually bringing them to the word. And so I do think it's a legitimate question. Mm-hmm. And what I can always just tell you is my nickname in Kansas City, and it was the appropriate nickname, it was Jason Fliplock. Because as soon as I'm presented information that contradicts my narrative, I'm going to adopt that new narrative and I'm going to flip-flop. So as soon as Deion Sanders starts exhibiting anything that I think is sustainable and can win, or if he does it his way and builds something sustainable, I'm going to be, yep, I was wrong. Man, Deion did it in a way that I didn't think it could be done, and maybe blah, 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 blah. And next, I'll be carrying the Deion banner like everybody else and say, yeah, it worked. That is me. The only person I never flip-flopped on is Jeff George. And that's because, we grew up together, and I've told everybody, hey, man, that dude and his family, salt of the earth. And I love them. And so don't come to me for an unbiased opinion on Jeff George.
Sure.
It's just not going to happen. And so, but everybody else has seen me flip-flop. Oh, I flip-flop on me. I mean, some days I like me, some days I don't. And so, am I willing to see things from Deion's perspective? And do I love that he mentions Jesus? Yes. But I wish he would adopt actions that provided substance to what's coming out of his mouth. And so it's like me, and literally, I'm probably the only person that would ever talk about Jesus in a strip club. And I was a fool. Because, it's just, that message for the actions undercut everything.
Message.
You can't get a lap dance and then say, hey, well, let me tell you about Jesus.
Yeah.
No, man. And so, anyway, but it's a fair question, and I appreciate you asking it. And I'm going to cut you loose and move on to Shamika. Thank you, Delano.
Thank you, Jason.
Delano. Did I call him Delano? Did I just say Delano? Delano, thank you. Shamika Michelle, next.
Jason Whitlock, previously on Fearless.
I'm telling you, systemic anti-black racism exists here in America. Over the course of America's first 190 years, while white and black evangelicals deconstructed this system, this country's system of anti-black laws, policies, and cultural norms. During the last 60 years, white and black progressive elites rebuilt a system of anti-black cultural norms, laws, and policies. Starting with Lyndon Johnson's Great Society initiative, the Democratic Party convinced black Americans that our salvation and progress were tied to government assistance rather than obedience to and trust in God. The Great Society bribed black women to abandon the patriarchy, male leadership, and the nuclear family, the central pillars of biblical faith. All right, welcome back. Time for some Shamoke Show. Shamika, welcome to the show. Today's Tuesday. Yeah, we didn't have you on yesterday. Did we have you? No, you were moving yesterday.
Yeah.
Anyway, Shamika, have I confused you during our time working together? And I can't remember. Delano said he was on the second show. I can't remember how early you came on board, but I do think you and Delano, well, Greg Couch maybe came on board before both of you, and he didn't make it. So I'm not like, I love Greg Couch, but anyway, let me stop. I'm not laughing at Greg Couch. Have I confused you in any way about what it is we're trying to do here at Fearless?
Jason, I just think I need to let you know, ain't nobody coming to see you, Jason. You ever seen that part of the Temptations? David Ruffin has spoken.
Oh, boy, we're the five heartbeats. Yeah, go ahead.
And in all seriousness, no, and the only thing I've ever been concerned with is you sticking to the mission, because the mission is where I feel like I fit in. I have always talked about faith, family, fathers. These are things that are important to me. And so even when you started to go down the Dion rabbit hole or whatever, and it was going to be heavy football, my only concern was, is Jason sticking to the mission? Because I don't care if you get up here and talk about clowns or naked baboons. I don't care as long as it's tying into the mission and I trust you. So this goes back to a conversation we had maybe a couple of weeks ago where I talked about women not being content with being wives. And so for me, I'm content with being a contributor, being someone who assists you. I'm not here to be the star of the show, and I trust you. So I don't feel like you have gotten away from the mission because you continue to talk about faith, family, fathers. You continue to push masculinity. You continue to be exactly who you were on day one. And I can tell you, I came in, I think it was the end of October or sometime in October, maybe the beginning. But there were a couple of things that you said to me that stuck with me. And one of those things was, you're good, but I'm going to make you great. And I remember my first time being in Nashville live. You came in, you stood at the door in the room that I was sitting in, and you said, you got to bring it. You got to be a little bit more confident. Look at how you're dressed. You're dressed like you're really confident, but you got in front of the camera and you kind of, shrunk a little bit. And I felt like you were so hard on me. For my first time being there, I said to myself, if I was a weak woman, I'd be crying right now. But I remembered you telling me, you're good, but I want you to be great. And so I remember praying about that and feeling like God said to sit at your feet. Have there been times when I felt like you kicked me while I was down there? Yes. But he hasn't told me to get up. So in everything that you say to me, I trust that you're going to do right by me. And I've told you before, I've never been in a situation where with a Black man in business that treated me right, that provided a place of safety for me. And so that means a lot to me as far as what's going on and you actually being who you have said you are and who you've shown me to be, because I have a group of brothers now that I've never had before. And that means so much to me because you don't just talk about family. Although you don't have a wife and although you don't have kids, you have created a family right here in Fearless, and it means a lot to me. So I don't think you've gotten away from the vision. Regardless of what you say, you show us every day in your actions that you are actually walking the talk. And so I feel like I fit in because I've been keeping it naked. You said to walk in truth. I've been, an advocate for freedom of speech because I've gotten kicked off platforms for saying exactly what I want to say. So that means a lot to me. And you've also talked about personal responsibility and self-awareness, being authentic. All of that is who I am, and it lines up with the mission of the show. So you haven't tried to change me. Now, I will say, by my own maybe feeling like I should, I don't curse as much. I'm not as crass as I can be. So I do feel like there are areas where I've, stretched and had to become better. You also, I'm starting to write my own content for Shaking My Headlines. That is stretching me. That's growing me. That's doing exactly what you said your mission is. So regardless of what someone says, I can see it. And so for me, that's all that matters.
So what do you think of my mother's contention that, man, you created a problem with Uncle Jimmy putting him on that billboard poster with you, and she has the same, or putting them contributors on there, that's problematic. That gasses people up. And I do, no matter what I might say off air about, hey, try this or do this, on air, I go out of my way to sell y'all as either hilarious or smart or blah, blah, blah. And my mother's like, man, you better be careful. That creates problems. And so I literally have, one of the things I've thought about this week, I was like, man, let me take everybody's picture down and just leave myself up there. I look at everybody. I look at Ben Shapiro. I look at anybody, Glenn Beck or anybody else. It's just them, and quit trying to sell everybody else. I'm not going to do it because it's just not in my nature. But I have thought about that. But I just got to remind myself it's individuals, and the individuals that have really bought into what I'm doing. I don't have that. I shouldn't have that concern.
I understand what your mom is saying, and I'm glad you're not going to take it down because I look really cute in that picture. But I do think that people can get the big head. And I realize even with the audience, the way they reach out to me, for me to send you messages, I need you to tell Jason A, B, C, D. And it really gets on my nerves because I'm not your personal secretary. I'm not your booking agent. I'm not the one that is going to get on the phone or, our calls and say, hey, Jason, so-and-so told me to tell you A, B, C, D. And so I think even the audience feels like, we should play more of a role or we should have more of an influence on you. And that's just not the case. The same way you allow us to grow and evolve and figure life out, you are growing and evolving and figuring life out. And we get to see that on the show. But I do think it gives the audience and the contributors this idea that we're more important than we should be. Like it's Jason or Fearless with Jason, Shamika, Delano, TJ. And that's not what it is. It's Fearless with Jason Whitlock. So we should all be content in being able to just speak when we can and do what we can and learn and grow. But some people are not going to do that. And I was talking to you earlier this morning when I was saying that, my kid's father, he has a cleaning business. Now he has dump truck businesses and everything too. But there have been times when we've had to deal with people in the community upset when he's had to let someone go because they just were not lining up with his vision. His vision was, is to have a cleaning company and to provide the best cleaning service that he can. If you're coming in there and you're being lazy or you're calling out of work and you don't want to do this, he has to let you go because you're not lining up with his vision. And so we've had to deal with people getting upset saying, how can he do this to a black man? Or how can he do this there's this sense of entitlement that even if you aren't pulling your weight, even if you aren't good for it, that you have to stay. And so I do think, giving us a platform or putting us in pictures could provide a space for someone to think, I have to be here. I'm supposed to be here. People want to see me. They're coming to see me. And I do think that it creates that. So you have to have the person that understands I'm here because I bring something to the table. If I stop bringing something to the table, that's it for me. And if I stop lining up with the vision, that's it for me. I suspect if I got up here every day and said, all hail King Satan, I wouldn't be here long because that doesn't line up with your vision. And so we should all understand that because that's just the way it is. If one day I wake up and God says, get up, I don't want you sitting at Jason's feet, I'm going to get up. And I'm not going to sit at your feet anymore. And I hope that you will understand your time was up, and I hope that God has told you to sit at your feet so that don't kick me too much while I'm down there, but
Well, the entitlement issue is something I've been struggling with. That it's why I don't understand a lot of what's going on, because it's just I have spent my entire career, and maybe I'm wrong for this, but again, it's part of the generation I grew up in, is that when I go on a job, I'm going to be on time and I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability. And I'm going to try to be such an asset that people will say, man, I want to hire someone just like Jason. And that, again, no matter, 16 years at the Kansas City Star, I can't remember how many, 5, maybe 8 years at Fox Sports in 2 different sets or whatever. And people can say whatever they want about my politics. They can never say I was late. They can never say I didn't put in top flight work. They can never say that I didn't stand up to my word, stand on my word, and deliver what I said. Now, they can say, like, man, Jason criticized Colin Kaepernick and it pissed off social media and it caused me headaches, or Jason has opinions that I don't like and cause me headaches inside the office. But in terms of professionalism and all that, I want, and again, this is what I'm saying, I'm part of a generation that thought it was my job to make sure that wherever I worked or whoever I work with would say, man, I hope I can find someone else just like Jason. And what I mean by that, I'm trying to represent Black people and trying to say, no, I'm not entitled. No, I'm not someone that's going to take advantage. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And I'm going to leave you with the impression. Now, again, we're now in a whole different era where my biblical point of view scares off a lot of people. And so a lot of people are completely uninterested in people like me that will stand on this worldview. But I just don't, I've seen what I'm seeing in recent and what I've seen in the past. It's like, wow, I can't believe you're handling this way. This is not the look that we're trying to produce with Fearless is like, no, we can't all get along and be professional. We don't have to agree on everything, but we can be professional. And so and I don't want to drag you into my mess, but I just look, I'm like, man, how you gonna take a private conversation and do 4 hours of stuff on it? That's just a horrible look. And it particularly for someone who's done nothing to you but help you. It's just so, people they're taking notice of us and what we're doing. And, we can agree to disagree while being professional, while not, just quite frankly, just creating this. And again, I'm very reluctant. Anybody that's followed the show, I don't like charges of racism and anti-Semitism, but I'm getting a dose of it right now. That this whole thing that Mark Levin is controlling me, that's totally fabricated and untrue, not an ounce of truth to it, and it feeds into that trope that Jewish people talk about, that they feel is very unfair. It's like, no, blame Jason for what Jason's doing, because I ain't got nothing to do with it. And they really don't. It's why I'm here. Because, again, if I wanted puppet masters, I would be at the networks. But anyway, that final thought, and we'll call it a show.
Yeah, I think it also plays into the idea that anybody that's a Black conservative or anybody that has any expectations of the Black community must be the black face of white supremacy. I think it's completely ridiculous to think that someone has to be told exactly what to say. So if I get up here and I say, I believe fathers are important, I think you should come together as women and have, a husband first and then have kids. Why is that considered white supremacy? Because that's actually the right way to be. So you're saying that you believe the right way is white? So then white is right, if that's what you're saying. And I hate the idea that someone has to tell us to actually have intelligence to say what we know will actually work for not only our families, but the community that we claim we love. It really annoys me when people that don't know me try to question, do you like Black people? Do you hang around Black people? You won't find a picture of Shamika, a video from the past where you would actually wonder whether or not I was around Black people. From my hairstyle to my clothes to the way that I speak, you can tell all of that about me. But when I actually see something that I don't like and I feel like it's hindering our people, or I'm going to speak out about it. And so to think that someone is telling me what to say, it's actually an insult. And it should be an insult to the Black community at large, because you're saying that in order to have the right, correct thinking, you have to be white. I get so sick of someone when I push marriage say, well, are you married? Does it matter? If I tell you you need oil in your car for it to run effectively because my engine went out, my engine blew, are you going to sit there and say, well, did you put oil in your car? And if that's the tone that you take, you're stupid, because what I'm sitting here telling you is the right way to be. It's the right thing to do, which is why I love when you say bearing witness requires courage, not perfection. I've shared all of my imperfections right here on this show, and you still get to see them. I've talked about having an abortion. I've talked about my marriage failing. I've talked about being a stripper. But does that mean I'm going to tell the next generation, hey, go out there and shake what your mama gave you? No, I'm not. I'm going to tell you things that I learned the hard way with the hopes that you learn something different. You do something different. And so it bothers me when people say that, because they do try to keep you in a space of not saying what's right. So either they use your imperfections against you, or they tell you you're being the black face of white supremacy, which is just really stupid to me. And so, I appreciate what you're doing, Jason. When people come to me and complain about something that I've said, I'm clear. Jason does not tell me what to say. I find my own videos to react to. Sometimes people send me stuff because they're looking for me to say something. Even if you're sitting around thinking she's hard on Black people, it's Black people sending me these videos because they want to see what I have to say, because they're sick of it. And so the idea that you're controlling what we say, or that Glenn Beck or Mark is controlling this, it's just really dumb. And it just acts as if we can't have our own intellect and see something that we're passionate about and want to speak out about. I've been doing this for years, and the difference between me and somebody else that 10 years ago got on Facebook and started giving their opinion is I had to have courage to deal with all the backlash. I had to have courage and be fearless every time they kicked me off or put me in Facebook jail, to come back and say the same thing. So people can get upset with what is happening on this show, but I'm not going to stop talking. And as long as you give me a space to say it, I'm going to say what it is I feel. If you get upset because white people like it, I don't care. If you get upset that it's painting Black people in a bad light, I don't care. Tell them to stop giving me content, and I'll stop talking about it.
Thank you, Shamika. Great job as always. I'm going to have some final comments here, and then we'll play tomorrow and get out of here. So I just want to clarify one other thing. And again, this show has been important. It's been exactly what I wanted this show to be, just a reset, audience expectations, make sure the contributors are clear about what it is we're doing. And it's just a reset. And I need to reestablish that. And we may need to do this on a regular basis so that no one forgets. And I may have Justin try to figure out a way that we put the mission statement and the values thing up on screen somewhere at the beginning of every show. I try to figure out something just to remind everybody what it is we're actually doing here. But I want to, because people, and this isn't me being defensive, I just want to add context to things you're hearing and things you're seeing. My group of friends has been the same since 1985. The guys I went to college with and a guy I went to high school with, Willie Clark, Todd Furnell, Ralph Wise, Chuck Kelly, Tim Walton, Caswell Dawson, Stan Young. 1985. Paris McCurdy. Frank Barnes. And we've had misunderstandings and all that other stuff, but always, I fell out with my best friend for 2 or 3 years. But back together, and I've had the same group since 1985. Lost a couple along the way. Some died. Some just fell off as friends. You know, my position in the media causes complications because people, even my family, they have to defend me or whatever because people that have a lot of questions about me. But my friends have been the same. This media deal is complicated, particularly when you're me and you stick to a set of values that are not in style. And when you have a set of principles and when you take your word as seriously as I do, there's going to be some change up. Because it's hard to be my friend in the media space. Me and Dan Le Batard, I'm telling you, I love that dude and his family. I just learned this week that his brother died in April. But I get it, and I've tried to explain to y'all. It became very hard for Dan to be my friend because there's a career consequence to that. And that contributed to me and Dan Le Batard basically going our separate ways because of me and what comes along with me and this hardcore stance on biblical values. And so and again, I don't want to walk through all of it, but again, someone lies to me and says it's going to be this way or that way, I cut the cord and just move on. And so me and Uncle Jimmy were friends for 25, 30 years, 25 years, something like that. And this media thing is hard. It's hard on relationships. People have goals and desires and things that they want to do, and I can't meet them all. And so this career, it's difficult, and particularly when you're like me and you make the mistake, and I call it a mistake, but it's just the way that I am. I'm direct and I'm honest. And so, I could, like most people do, I could just lie to people and tell them half truths and, that would make things easier. And I'm sure there's people that would give me advice, hey, you should do more of that. But I just can't. My conscience won't allow it. So if I see someone on the show like, hey, man, if you would unpack your ideas this way, you would be more valuable to the show. But if you continue to unpack them the way you are, you're less viable for the show. That's all I said. And I'm always going to be that way. But in this business where people's desires and egos and, are wrapped up in it, that can cause people to, go off the rails on you. And when it happens, I'm going to allow them to go off the rails and I'm going to move on. And because I have a mission here that I feel like if I don't stick to this mission, I'm going to be unbelievably punished, jeopardize my chance to get into heaven. Not gonna do it. So hopefully this is the last time I have to, well, no, because I just said, we're gonna talk about the mission statement more often so that because we get new viewers and people that hadn't heard of the show. And so it's important for me to re-explain. And so part of this is my fault, but I just want the audience to understand. That's why things are the way they are. There are no Supreme Court justices as it relates to the contributors. We got to stay on mission and on task. And so that's that. That's tomorrow, and we'll see you tomorrow.
For freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back, we are receiving, all deceiving, we all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be